Wake up, you ain't heard the news. Thank you for joining me here on the Fast Break Sports Hour, the August 13th, 2018 edition. Appreciate y'all for joining me here live on YouTube Live. I'm Jesse, here for the Fast Break Sports Hour. And if you guys paid close attention to this weekend, a lot of incredible things happened in sports, especially the first week of the NFL preseason officially kicked off. That was last Thursday, Friday, Saturday had some games. Baseball had a great weekend. And Tiger Woods had a great weekend. Yeah, Tiger Woods. We don't really talk about golf too much. And we're definitely not going to start off with golf. But Tiger Woods, man, he's back. He's back officially. And I have a little opinion on him a little bit later. But with all that being said, NFL preseason in full effect. It was a wonderful, wonderful opening week of preseason. And here's the bottom line that I want you guys to understand is preseason is great, especially week one, when it comes to evaluating depth on your team, evaluating the progression of younger players, but never, ever, ever take the wins and losses into consideration when actually looking into your team and saying, hey, they didn't have a good preseason. I don't have a great outlook for them in the regular season. That's the wrong way to go about things. Do not look at the outcome as to how your team played. Look at it from the levels of the depth that your team has. And obviously, week one, even if your team went out there and didn't produce like you would like to, and with the first stringers, with the starters, in that first quarter. And again, some of these teams, some of these stars didn't even play. You had players like Tom Brady that didn't play. You had Von Miller, a defensive star who didn't play for the Denver Broncos. You had Aaron Rodgers didn't play. So you had a lot of these, top-notch players that really don't need too much work in the preseason, but expect those guys to play a little bit here this week in week two. But with week one wrapped up, I'll look at some of the things that really stood out to me. Again, it being week one, don't take too much into consideration, but you can see some things that can worry you. But again, you have to understand these offenses, these defenses, they're going to be basic, especially in the first preseason game. So don't take too much into it. If some players did great, look into that and say, you know what, these guys show flashes, and go from there. But some of the things that I really saw that were, just jumped off the screen. And I was like, man, that dude right there. And I'm gonna start off Thursday night football, the first game on that doubleheader, the Giants and the Cleveland Browns. Saquon Barkley. You couldn't have predicted this. First carry of the game, hits the middle, bounces it to the outside where nothing was there, bounces it to the outside, escapes a defender, cuts back in as he continues to rumble for 39 yards on his first official preseason carry. And that was exciting, man. Saquon Barkley, once he had that run, my thing was, you know what? Take him out the game. Take Saquon Barkley out the game. He doesn't have to show anything else. But he had a couple more carries, ended up with like 43, 44 yards, had like 5 carries for 45 yards, 44 yards. But that first carry went for 39, just to show you how elusive the guy is, and he's ready for the NFL. I don't see him having that little, stumbling out the gate. I think he's going to be very impactful from the beginning. For those of you that are in fantasy football leagues, get a fan, and he's like, shut up, man, do not talk about Saquon Barkley. And I'm not doing it for the sake of him. Saquon Barkley showed out, and that was fun to see. And in the same game, Baker Mayfield, the only difference with Baker Mayfield is he was going against second stringers, third stringers, but had a hell of a game, had a couple of touchdowns, and was able to provide that leadership that we all knew Baker Mayfield had, and was able to make plays. So you really can't dog him for who he was going against. He could only go against what the other team puts out there, and he did a pretty good job. Wondering if he's going to get any shot this preseason with the ones. Tyrod Taylor, he's the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. He's going to get the starting reps, and rightfully so, rightfully deserved. He is the veteran quarterback and has provided a lot of big plays in this league, taking his team to the playoffs. Most recently with the Buffalo Bills. So that's a question that's going to be fun to see if he has any shot this. And don't take the fourth game of the preseason into consideration. Baker Mayfield will probably be starting that fourth game because usually the starters do not play. Unless something crazy happens and the Cleveland Browns are like, you know what, let's make this guy the starter, then you won't see Baker Mayfield playing in that fourth game. But will he get any reps with the ones in live action? That's what I want to see with Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns. But again, had an awesome game. Again, it doesn't matter the opponent or the talent, the depth that he was playing against. Again, he could only show out to what he's going against, and did a pretty good job leading his team down the field a couple times for those touchdowns. And again, the results of the games do not matter. So don't look at this and be like, man, the Browns beat the Giants 20-10, or man, the Patriots and the Redskins and these games, the final result do not matter. It's more so, again, looking at the depth, looking at how these younger players have progressed from year one to year two, or just guys that are about to break out to see if they're actually getting into the groove of things. Another thing that I saw, and I talked about it more so, not on the field, but off the field, was the whole Cam Newton and Kelvin Benjamin ordeal. I didn't expect that to happen. And for those of you that didn't catch it, before the game, because the Panthers met up with the Bills in the first week of the preseason, after I had talked about last week that Kelvin Benjamin was kind of throwing the Panthers under the bus, talking about they shouldn't have drafted him, talking about how it was a bad fit because he wasn't with the right quarterback. So kind of throwing some of these verbal jabs at Cam Newton, and Cam Newton responded with, we're moving on. And he was, talking about, we're just going to continue to work hard and stay in shape. And, those were a little behind, some remarks towards Kelvin Benjamin's being overweight. And I mentioned that he's been out of shape and he looks that. And besides the game, because in the game, Kelvin Benjamin played pretty good that game against the Panthers on Friday, I believe it was, Friday or Thursday. But he played pretty good, had a long touchdown. And again, before the game, Cam Newton comes across the field to kind of, say what's up to Kelvin Benjamin. And you can look at the body language that Cam Newton was going to come in a playful manner. And it looked as if Kelvin Benjamin wasn't going to have it. So it was like Kelvin Benjamin responded and Cam Newton was like, oh, okay, so we're not cool. And the linebacker Davis for the Panthers, he was there. He was speaking with Kelvin Benjamin prior to that, and as it looked like it was getting serious, Cam Newton kind of pushed him away and said, you know what, I got this, Thomas Davis. Let me figure this out. And it just looked like they were going back and forth. Kelvin Benjamin was trying to walk away from Cam. Cam with his hands behind the back. If you guys haven't seen it, look it up on YouTube. They have this little thing. It's just a little back and forth thing, and it's kind of, it's unfortunate, but you kind of knew something like this was going to happen. I think Cam was trying to go the high route. He was going to go over there and say, hey, you know what, good luck. Let's see what happens this year, and nothing personal. But it didn't look like Kelvin Benjamin was going to have it, and if there's something there, if there's some personal things that we don't know about, I mean, it is what it is. But you saw that right off the bat. It looked like, there was some words exchanged, and Cam was like, all right. So it doesn't look like we're cool. And they proceeded to go their separate ways. But that was crazy to see because I didn't expect that to happen after the war of words that happened last week prior to the game. But that was a little side thing to look at when it comes to Kelvin Benjamin, the Panthers, and Cam Newton. So that added a little bit of flair to the game. But again, preseason, these games do not matter. Never will they matter. Another thing that I saw that was, man, that was interesting was, well, let's stick with the Panthers and the Bills. More so the younger players like DJ Moore, the receiver for the Panthers. He looked pretty good. The number one receiver drafted in this year's draft. The Panthers took him. He was the first receiver taken off the board in the teens. So he looked pretty good. He's going to be like NFL ready. So just that caught my eye. Going to, man, Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck looks solid. No, I didn't see any ill effects of what's been happening with him in the past with his shoulder, and that's great. That's great to see. That's uplifting, especially if you're a Colts fan or just the organization itself and NFL fans, because I like seeing Andrew Luck out there. Andrew Luck's great for the league. Andrew Luck is that guy that does everything right. He works hard, he prepares, and he doesn't say anything. He answers the questions the way they should be answered, and he's just a hardworking guy. Peyton Manning was the quarterback prior to Andrew Luck for the Colts, and it looked like that baton was passed pretty good when it comes to how they carry themselves, because Peyton Manning was real good when it came to the media, off the field things. Just was awesome when it came to everything that didn't come with on the field. So everything off the field was great with Peyton Manning, and Andrew Luck carried that torch and was doing the same thing. Again, he got injured and hadn't been playing much the last 2 years. Didn't play at all last year, and to see him out there and play pretty decent, that was cool to see. That was one of the things that I was looking at, and hopefully he can continue to progress and get a little bit more playing time here in his second week of the preseason and go from there. But another thing that was the rookie quarterbacks. So I already talked about Baker Mayfield. Sam Darnold, nothing too crazy, but he looked good. He looked efficient. When it came to the other quarterbacks, like Teddy Bridgewater, also looked pretty decent. There isn't that much difference. Again, it's week one, so we're going to continue to see how this plays out, especially for the Jets, how it plays out for their quarterback room. But Sam Darnold, I believe if he continues to play the way he played in week one of the preseason, you have to go with him week one of the regular season. Him being the second quarterback drafted in this year's draft after Baker Mayfield, I believe it's time for them, especially when you look at the team that they have and the quarterbacks that they have. Josh McCown, again, he had some nice stats last year. He put up some nice fantasy football stats, but when it comes to him being a winner on a playoff team, it's not going to happen. And the Jets are not a playoff team, so you might as well go with the young quarterback, the guy you're going to invest your future in, and that is Sam Darnold. And I believe if he continues to get better after this week one showing and then going into week two and week three, I believe you got to give him a shot in week three of the preseason and let him play with the ones and see what he looks like. You have nothing to lose. See what he looks like. And if it still looks pretty good, throw him in here, throw him in there for week one and watch that growth. And I mean, bring him along slowly. Don't just say, hey, go out there and win us games. Put him in positions to succeed. And slowly he will start to progress. I think he needs to go out there week one. Again, if he plays the way he played this first week and didn't look too bad. So the other quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson had a pretty good touchdown run. Is pretty good in the pocket. Had some pretty good, somewhat intermediate long passes, but his accuracy still isn't there. His completion percentage was pretty bad. He went 7 for 18. Again, he's a rookie. He's not going to be expected to start anytime soon. They got Joe Flacco there for the Ravens, and Robert Griffin III. Whether he's held on as a backup or if he is just in rehearsal for another NFL team as a backup, and I'm looking at a team. I'm gonna talk about a team that's gonna need a backup. I'll get into that in a little bit, and if RG3 would be a fit for that team. But RG3 looked pretty good. Again, RG3 is not going against starters. He's going against second stringers, third stringers, as is Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson, he was doing some running out there, and that's what he does. and the completion percentage will get better as he continues to play. But I think he's going to be one of those players that maybe he's going to sit for 2 years. He's going to have to sit for 2 years unless injuries happen. Those things happen. That's part of football. But I think if everything goes right, the way the Ravens see it is let's let Joe Flacco stay the quarterback, stay the course, and maybe in 2, 3 years, Lamar Jackson can take over as the quarterback. Worst case scenario, but it's going to be Joe Flacco. There's no question about that. I think the Ravens are going to be a fringe playoff team. I don't have them making the playoffs in my predictions, and if you didn't catch my predictions, you got to go back to one of my first shows here on the Fast Break Sports Hour channel when I did the show with Angel from the Mile High podcast. We did our predictions. If you want to check it out, go back into it. It's one of the longest shows that I did because we were just talking about the 2018 season. But the Ravens, to me, they're a fringe playoff team. It can go either way. So Joe Flacco is going to be there as long as he's healthy. Lamar Jackson, I expect him to slowly get better, but not too impressive in my eyes. The other quarterbacks, so we have Josh Allen and Josh Rosen, the two Joshes. Josh Rosen, and it's been put out there, I've said it many times, to me, he was my favorite quarterback coming out of the draft this year. And to me, I see him as being the most successful and the best quarterback long term. His outing against the Chargers, again, nothing to sneeze at, but nothing to say, you know what, he played pretty average. He did what he had to do. Nothing spectacular, nothing glaring. It's a step. It's a step in the right direction. You look at the Cardinals, if Sam Bradford stays healthy, I believe you want him to be your quarterback because he's a pretty good quarterback when healthy. So if he's healthy, you got Sam Bradford in the fold. Josh Rosen will not be playing this year as long as Sam Bradford is healthy. So anything you can gain from game experience from Josh Rosen is a plus. But again, nothing too crazy that I saw from Josh Rosen. Nothing negative, nothing too like, wow, this. But I expect him at the end of the day to be the best out of all of these rookie first-round quarterbacks. But he had an average showing. Josh Allen was all right. He was pretty good. But he's going to be one of those quarterbacks that's going to be up and down. I've labeled him as a Jay Cutler type from the beginning, not in his attitude, because I think his attitude is great so far from what I've seen. A great attitude, a fiery kid, but I believe he's going to be one of them players that is going to have up and down games. He's going to have those games you're like, what? Like, why is he a starter? Then he's going to have those games like, man, he can be player of the week with those kind of stats. So not to say he's not going to be able to get into a consistent type of style, but just right now, what I see a lot of up and down. You look at the talent around him with the Bills. A lot of questions with Shady McCoy and just the receiving core as a whole. They do have Benjamin. Again, Benjamin, it was preseason, had a pretty good showing that first game against the Panthers. We'll see how it progresses this year. We'll see how that team gets better. A lot of young receivers. And I think Benjamin's going to be key to Josh Allen's growth if he is named the starter again. They still have A.J. McCarron. A.J. McCarron had a pretty good showing as well. Not too shabby. Go look it up. So not too sure if Josh Allen's going to get the nod week one. A.J. McCarron is another young quarterback, so I don't think you can go wrong if they're pretty close and then kind of just see how it goes back and forth. But Josh Allen, not too bad. But at the end of the day, I expect him to be one of those quarterbacks where he has a great week and then a bad week. Kind of like. So I named Jay Cutler, but who else that's more prominent at this moment can I label him as? And I mean, I don't want to say Derek Carr, but I just did. Derek Carr to me is a guy that I'm not surprised if he throws for 350, 4 touchdowns, and carries that team on his back. And then the next week, throws for 180 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick, and they lose. That's not shocking. I think Derek Carr's a little bit more consistent than that, but Just that's probably the closest I can get to what Josh Allen is going to be to current starting quarterbacks. But the rookie quarterbacks not too bad, nothing too glaring. The best one to me was Baker Mayfield, and then the one that still needs some work is Lamar Jackson, and it goes from there. The other three, Darnold, Rosen, and Allen, not too bad, nothing too crazy. They can continue to get some work done. But not looking bad for this rookie class. It's a pretty good showing, especially man Saquon Barkley again. That's the guy. That's the guy that a lot of people are going to predict him to be the rookie of the year and to be the most outstanding rookie. But I think that's a lock. Him being healthy is a lock. Now there was some reports that he's been kind of gimpy lately, but it's just soreness. Nothing too crazy. Nothing that's gonna hold him out of any games. Whether he plays or not this week remains to be seen. Look out for that. If I hear anything, I'll let you guys know as I do the show more consistently. Again, this is the Fast Break Sports Hour. Thank you for joining me. I'm live here on YouTube, or you can watch this later. But man, you got to watch this show more often because it's sports. So whatever I talked about today, probably half of the show will not be relevant a week from now because I'll be talking about games that happened, August 10th, August 11th, which have no bearing August 28th. So, I mean, but if you like looking at my mug, that's different. I don't do it for that, it's just sports. I love sports. But again, thank you for joining me and just trying to be a little bit entertaining for y'all and giving y'all sports the way I view them, my opinion. Like, subscribe, put your comments below. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, thumbs up, man. We all like thumbs up. I give y'all thumbs up because, man, you watch this show, that means you watch sports and you care about sports, and sports is life. But on to some more preseason action. Juju Smith-Schuster, oh my God. You talk about a player that's ready, that it wasn't a fluke the first season. Man, he caught that bomb and took it down the sideline. Nobody's business. That dude's ready. If you thought the Steelers needed more firepower, they got it. And Juju was already doing his thing last year, but now he has a year under his belt, and he comes out and he does that. Check out the highlights, man. The dude was he burned everybody down the sideline. It was a nice pass, but man, Juju is on it. Another guy that's going to have another great year, slightly better year than last year, obviously, coming into his second year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Juju, man, and that dude's pretty cool. I mean, if you look at his Twitter, if you just follow him and you see, his antics or whatnot, it's pretty entertaining. He doesn't take himself too seriously. You like to see that. You like to see a guy that can still have fun and not pretend like because he's a professional athlete that he's better than everybody else, which we know these athletes are amongst the elite of the world. These are the top elite players, athletes in the world. But, he fits in real nicely with that team with the Pittsburgh Steelers, fun-loving guy, and an even better football player. Juju, man, he tore it up, and he's going to continue to tear it up. So watch him this year. No sophomore slump for him whatsoever. And somewhat slight, not even slight, but it is sad, bad news, especially for the Redskins and Darius Geis. He got hurt in that game against the New England Patriots and tore his ACL. The rookie running back that they drafted in the second round, he's out for the season. So they had high hopes for him coming out. He was going to be the starting running back. So now it's going to be up to players like Chris Thompson and Samaj P. Ryan to carry that load. So, on the lighter side, if you're talking about fantasy football, I mean, you never want to see a player go down like that, especially a rookie player who has high hopes. You saw this with Dalvin Cook last year. What was it, week 5 of the NFL season? And he was doing pretty good up to that point. He's a top 5 rusher before he got hurt and lost the season. Same thing with Darius Geis. They had high hopes for him. He's out for the season, torn ACL. And again, it's going to be up to Chris Thompson and Samaj P. Ryan, who had, showed some flashes, but really nothing too crazy. Chris Thompson got hurt last year as well. So he's going to be coming back. He's a real good pass catcher out the backfield. So look for those two guys, and maybe somebody comes out of the woodworks and becomes the new running back for the Redskins. But I believe it's going to be one of those two guys if they don't, do the whole work share. They're going to share the load or whatnot. That's what a lot of teams do nowadays when they don't have like a specific awesome number one, like an Ezekiel Elliott, like a Kareem Hunt, like a Le'Veon Bell, like a Todd Gurley, players like that, soon to be Saquon Barkley. Man, those players, they're ridiculous. David Johnson didn't look too shabby in that game. Had a couple of carries for 28 yards. Again, he didn't have any injuries to his lower extremities, so no issues there. It was a hand issue that he had last year that held him out the whole season. But he's looking like fire. So don't be, I'm always going to refer to fantasy football, but don't be second guessing yourself. That guy is a top 3 pick when it comes to fantasy football. He's he's going to help out the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are one of those teams, though I didn't pick them to get to the playoffs this year in my predictions. The Arizona Cardinals are going to be a very tricky, sneaky, dark horse teams, dark bird teams. They like to wear the black sometimes. So the dark bird team that can surprise some people in that NFC West, because you look at the Seahawks, they're going to take a step back. Yeah, we got the Niners that are coming up, but I don't think the Niners, though they have the quarterback, love the quarterback. Jimmy G, great. I love Jimmy G. I expect big things from Jimmy G. They don't have the type of talent the Cardinals do offensively with David Johnson, with Larry Fitzgerald, and then the rookie they drafted, Christian Kirk, who had a pretty good game returning the ball. And I believe he's going to be, if not the number 2, the number 3 receiver for that team. And with the healthy Sam Bradford, man, things are looking up for that team. If they can stay healthy, if Larry Fitzgerald keeps, man, Larry, I don't know where you have this fountain of youth, but I swear to the Lord above that 4 years ago, your career was done. I was like, man, this guy, he's just a possession receiver now, and he's going to have like 50 catches a year, 500 yards, couple touchdowns, and then boom, reception after reception after reception. You just kept doing it. Larry Fitzgerald he went back to the well, kept going back to the well, drinking that fountain of youth water, sipping on it like a juice box. He'll be sipping on that thing, and he's like, I'm ready. People think I'm out of this game, but I'm ready. I'm still the number 1 receiver, not just with the Cardinals, but possibly in the NFC West. Again, Larry Fitzgerald, David Johnson, Sam Bradford, a healthy Sam Bradford. Watch out for the Cardinals, man. I might have to change my picks if Sam Bradford stays healthy, but I'm not going to do that. I got the Rams, Niners, and then the Cardinals, and the Seahawks in last place. Who would have ever thought that? 2 or 3 years ago, who would say the Seahawks would be in last place? But that team is decimated on the defensive side. Yeah, they got the twins back there, the Griffin twins. Great stories there. If you haven't looked into that, look into the Griffin twin stories, especially the brother that got drafted this year. He's missing a hand, but that doesn't stop him from terrorizing, the tight ends, the running backs coming out the backfield as a linebacker that he is. So check out that story. But the Seahawks to me are the fourth best team. But the dark horse Arizona Cardinals, watch out. Watch out for that team. They stay healthy. But that's enough about the Arizona Cardinals. I think I might have this Arizona Cardinals fever just because I have recently moved to Arizona. You wouldn't even tell, though, because I got Bronco gear everywhere. I came from Denver. I was born here in Arizona, grew up in Denver, came back. It's still hot like a mug. It's very hot. But, man, the Cardinals, don't sleep on the Cardinals. Again, we talk about it every time, especially I talk about it, as long as these dudes do not get injured, so you can't be like, man, something happens to the top players. And, man, you said they was going to be good, man. Top players mean something in this league, especially the teams that are fringe playoff teams. And the Cardinals are one of those fringe playoff teams, kind of like the Ravens that I talked about earlier. So watch out for them. They're not my dark horse team. They're the dark bird team coming out the NFC West. Arizona Cardinals, man, they flying under the radar, but they're right there. Again, David Johnson, it was pretty nice to see him. 2 carries, 28 yards, looking good. And let's talk about another guy that it looked like he went back to the well. It looked like he's been hanging out with Larry. Man, he's been hanging out with Larry. Hey, what's up, Chewy? How you doing? I think you're Chewy because it says Jesus. Uh, what's up? Another guy that it looked like he went to the well, and I'm just going off the preseason game, but Marshawn Lynch looks like he has a little jump in his step. He had a long run and he just burned everybody down the sideline. Though it was called back, but still, you look at the speed, you look at the elusiveness that he showed in that game. Might be some things cooking there for the Raiders when it comes to Marshawn Lynch. As long as he's always been a fun-loving guy, as long as he wants to go out there and terrorize teams, he's going to do his thing. I kind of viewed it as he was falling off. I saw him last year, and I was thinking, you know what, this is it for him. He's just going to continue to decline. But if anything, if he continues to show what he showed in that first preseason game, and he takes that into the season, Marshawn Lynch is going to be a force to be reckoned with this year. And you know, John Gruden likes that old style of football, and he's going to pound it with Marshawn. He loves himself some Marshawn Lynch. So beast mode might be back in full effect. So check that out, man. As a Bronco fan, I didn't like to see that. I like to see players be great in the NFL. I love seeing great players do great plays, but I do not want to see Marshawn Lynch tear it up with the Raiders. Please, I do not want to see that. But good for him. It looked pretty good. Had that long run call back, but he's looking nifty out there. Check those highlights. I'm pretty sure it's out there. I think it was a top 10 play on ESPN, and and they called it back. So Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. Look out for that, man, and don't be mad at Marshawn Lynch. He's doing his thing. As a Bronco fan, I definitely had my eyes on that Bronco game. A bunch of things that I saw. Number one is how Kirk Cousins and Stephon Diggs, that that connection is, they already showed it. That's going to be a lethal connection. I'm pretty sure Adam Thielen's going to get sprinkled in there, a little bit of Kyle Rudolph, and obviously Dalvin Cook. I might be underestimating the Vikings. Again, it was week one, but I like the connection between Kirk Cousins and Stephon Diggs coming out the gates. It looked like they were just, seeing eye to eye, and it looks like they're in for a big season stats-wise. So for you fantasy dudes out there, look for that connection. Man, Kirk Cousins and Stephon Diggs, as long as they're healthy, gonna put up some numbers. And so that was one of the things that I saw. I didn't take. So the Vikings marched down the field, like it was nothing. I don't take too much into consideration when it comes to, the first preseason game. Obviously, you would like to see your team D up a little bit better. The Broncos, they didn't stop the run, they couldn't stop the pass. No Von Miller, no Todd Davis, starting linebacker, and no Sua Cravens. So to me, those are three main pieces that didn't play in the game. But at the same time, had they played and the same thing happened, I wouldn't look too much into it. Again, these guys are playing base defenses, not doing anything that's going to show for the regular season. You might see these defenses and offenses will start to, more so defense will start to be a little bit more exotic as weeks go on into the preseason and into that week 3 matchup. Week 3 in the preseason, and I've mentioned this before on previous shows when I used to be on Facebook Live on the Faz Brayke Sports Hour, or when I was on the Mile High podcast. The week 3 of the preseason, for those of you that watch football, understand that week 3 of the preseason is the real game to kind of gauge where your team's at. That's the game where your starters on both sides of the field will play into the third quarter. Unless they just tear it up in the first half, they'll probably be out by halftime. But usually they'll come out and have a series or two into the third quarter. That's when you can kind of say, you know what, my team's ready. I'm not too scared going into week 1. But that's the week where all the teams go full force and show what they got. You'll see Tom Brady play a whole half. You'll see Aaron Rodgers play a whole half. Ben Roethlisberger, all the stars, Antonio Brown, Von Miller, they will be playing a whole half to kind of get themselves ready for that week 1 matchup and to kind of see where they're at. And it's cool because both teams will be doing it. So it's not going to be like, your number 1 against the number 2s. You're going to have both number 1s out there. So week 3 is the week to where you can really sit back and say, man, I see some issues here. I don't like what I'm seeing. The season's long, but still, you can kind of gauge a little bit off of that week 3. Another thing that I saw in that Broncos-Vikings game, Case Keenum, he was only out there for 2 series, but, they just couldn't connect. He went 1 for 4, 5 yards. It just looks like that offense is still going to need some work. They're just going to need more time. And hopefully, this second game with the Denver Broncos playing the Chicago Bears here on Saturday, hopefully he can get more than 2 series. Unless they go down the field and score touchdowns, okay, take them out. That's fine. But hopefully they can get some rhythm going and show, just not just the team, but the fans that they can move the ball on offense because Case Keenum couldn't move the ball. And then here is what I was getting at with Robert Griffin III. Paxton Lynch continues to be a bust. Paxton Lynch as the second quarterback for the Denver Broncos, who should be the starter, the guy they drafted #1 a couple years ago, who was supposed to be the next coming, has not been able to produce. It seems like he's lacking the there's so what I view from Paxton Lynch is he lacks that urgency, that sense of urgency. What I mean by that is he doesn't want to take a chance on any plays. He wants to be very safe with everything. It's like he's afraid to lose his job on every pass because he knows that that's what's going to happen. So he's not playing like he should be. And this has been happening since last year, since they anointed him #1. He's been playing to not make mistakes. So you don't see any great plays. You just see either little dump offs or little mistakes. He's not going through the progression. He's being safe. And he even does it in practice. He does the same thing in practice. He's been doing it in training camp. He does everything safe. He dumps the ball off to the running back. And that's not going to work. When Case Keenum is out there and making plays, and hopefully this doesn't happen, but if anything happens to Case Keenum, because he does like making plays and he does like making plays out of the pocket, if anything does happen, you cannot go to Paxton Lynch. You are not going to win a game if you're down 7 and Case Keenum has to come out the game. Paxton Lynch is not going to bring you back. Maybe if you're up 14, then you can just say, Paxton, hand off the ball or throw a little 3-yard passes. That might work. But as a backup, that's not going to work. So some way, somehow, and Chad Kelly had a pretty good game, the third string quarterback for the Broncos. But again, it's third string. We have to continue seeing progression from Chad Kelly to say, you know what, we're comfortable with him being the #2. But right now, I'm way more comfortable. If Case Keenum goes out and we're down like a touchdown, I'll be way more comfortable with Chad Kelly coming in there and taking his team down the field because he comes out there locked and ready. And that's going to come with mistakes because he's a young quarterback, but he's going to try to make every throw, and he's a fiery player. But this is where I was talking about RG3. He's been pretty decent for the Ravens. I don't see like there's a spot for him there. And there's going to be more quarterbacks that are backups that are either not on a team right now or that are going to get released. And I think RG3 will be a good backup for the Denver Broncos because he's one of those quarterbacks that likes to move around as well. So he'll fit in this offense. And I'm sorry to say this, but you're going to have to cut Paxton Lynch, especially if this is the same way. You're not going to get anything of value for him. You won't even get a 6th-round pick for Paxton Lynch. So I understand there's this money thing, and he's guaranteed for 2 more years, but you got to cut your losses at some point. You cannot have a roster position taken up by a player that just has not gotten anything since day one. And that's a fact. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. Now, unless he comes out here game 2 and game 3 and proves otherwise, I just don't see it happening. I would love to, man. I'm a Bronco fan. I would love for this guy to be who he was supposed to be, but he just isn't. And it just happened. John Elway needs to cut his losses and not be stubborn and say, you know what? We need to bring in a veteran because if something happens in case, we need to have this ship continue to go. And I'm not saying RG3 is a savior, but he's going to be a pretty good backup. He's already shown he's going to go with the system. RG3 has enough experience to understand what he needs to do to keep the boat going, by any means. He's not gonna torch teams. He's not gonna be a top 5 quarterback. But I would much rather have an RG3 as my backup until Chad Kelly can continue to grow and progress and later become that. But for this year, you give me a player like RG3, pick him up after he gets released by the Ravens, which I think is going to happen because I think Lamar Jackson's going to be the backup to Joe Flacco. But I could be wrong. But RG3, once he's out there, Denver's going to have to pick him up. Denver's going to need a backup either way because they don't have one. And that's a very important position. You look at all the players, all the starting quarterbacks that missed games last year, it's prominent. There's a good chance your starting quarterback's going to miss at least one game. That's just the facts of life. That's just football. So if I'm the Denver Broncos, I look into something like that, RG3 or any of the quarterbacks that are still out there that have a similar style to the kind of offense that Musgrave will run. Gary Kubiak offense. We know what Gary Kubiak's doing behind the scenes. That's why he's there. But a player that is somewhat mobile and can run that offense the way it's supposed to be ran. And I think RG3, I've said this for many years, I believe he's a perfect player in that system, especially when they had Brock Osweiler and they were going through the whole, are we going to sign him or not? I believe RG3 would have been a perfect player for that system. But that's in the past, whatnot. But that's where I wanted to bring in RG3. I think he'd be a right fit as the backup for the Denver Broncos at this point. Paxton Lynch, man, it's sad to say, but it's just not going to work. And again, I'm bringing a lot of this Broncos flavor on here. I'm a Bronco fan, but it's prominent news right now. Adam Schefter reported that the Broncos are trying to see fillers on if Paxton Lynch would even have any buyers, but Adam Schefter said he has no value. Paxton Lynch has no value, so for Adam Schefter to even bring it up, that means there's rumblings of it. No value. You got to let him go. Cut your losses. It is what it is. He wasn't going to start this year. He's not going to start next year. Best case scenario, hopefully he gets better in these next 3 preseason games, but I just don't see it. You can't. You see a goat, it makes a noise like a goat. It's a goat. You're not going to tell me that goat is a wonderful horse. You can't fool me. It's not going to work. So if he's a GOAT, he's a GOAT. And I'm not talking about greatest of all time. So he wishes. I wish, but it's just not going to work for him and the Denver Broncos. That's just my opinion. Just some other things that I wanted to get to on the NFL scale is Alshon Jeffrey. It's being reported that he might miss the first 6 weeks of the season because right now he's on the PUP list. Now, a lot of pretty good players are on the PUP list. They're being held by the team to hold the roster position. But if at some point before the preseason's over, if you don't take them off the PUP list before week 1, then they have to stay on for the next 6 weeks. They have to stay on. So, the reports are that he's not really coming back too good he had shoulder surgery in the offseason, and they're, having some lingering effects. Not sure if he had any back steps towards that, anything that is keeping him behind schedule, but that's still an issue, and it looks like that he might be on the PUP list for the first 6 weeks of the season. So if any of you guys have Alshon Jeffrey in your fantasy team, I don't know what to tell you, but he might not be available. So this is where, if you're the Philadelphia Eagles and that receiving core, Nelson Aguilar is going to have to step up, and I think he did a pretty good job last year. I could see him as a good number 1. They did pick up Mike Wallace, so look out for that. Mike Wallace and Aguilar. Again, this is if Alshon Jeffrey stays on the PUP list, which it looks like he might be. It's still early to say, but he still might be. They're taking precautionary measures with that shoulder. And then another name is Mac Hollins, another young receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. I know if you're an Eagles fan, you know who Mac Hollins is. But these guys are going to be stepped into a higher role with Alshon Jeffrey out, if he is out for the first 6 weeks of the season. Man, first 6 weeks, what the hell are you talking about, bro? But, so yeah, with Carson Wentz getting back into the fold, he's going to have to look for someone to step up and be that leader in the receiving core. Alshon Jeffrey's still a damn good player. He's not the player he was 2 or 3, 4 years ago where he was looking like he was going to be a top 5 receiver. He never really got into that top 5, but he's still a pretty good receiver, pretty good top 20, 25 receiver at that. But yeah, we'll see when he comes back. We'll see if he's actually going to be on the PUP list for the first 6 weeks. So just wanted to throw that out there. Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald. Are they joined at the hip or not? None of these guys have signed. They both have a year on their contract left. I believe Donald has 2 years on his contract. Khalil Mack has 1 year left, $13 million. Still hasn't shown up. There was reports that he's waiting to see what Donald is going to sign for and then go off of that contract. But then there's other reports are saying that has nothing to do with it, that he just wants a new contract and he doesn't want to play for the 13 mil. He wants some security on that. The Raiders don't have any money right now, so they can't add to much of whatever he's going to make this year. Now, can they do something to where he gets, money for next year and do some sort of extension? Yeah. But by all means, it doesn't look like anything's going to get done anytime soon. There's even been rumblings of if he's going to be a player that can be put up for trade for another team that's willing to extend that contract and give him the contract that he wants. At the end of the day, I don't think he'll get traded, but to me, he has a better shot to get traded out of these two. I don't think Donald's going to get traded whatsoever. But Khalil Mack, they just haven't had any communication. So again, reports are they haven't even had any communication since February. John Gruden hasn't even talked to Khalil Mack, but John Gruden is confident that he's going to be there for week 1. You don't talk to a guy that's your best player on your team. He is the best player on that team. It's not Derek Carr. It's not Marshawn Lynch. It's not Jordy Nelson. It's not Amari Cooper. It's not anybody on that line. It's Khalil Mack. So do whatever you got to do to make him happy. I'm happy if I don't care if he sits out. I don't sit out forever. I don't need you in that division anyway. So don't fix it, man. John Gruden, you're doing a great job. Do not talk to Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack's being selfish. Don't talk to him. Do not fix anything. But, man, that's a big story right there. Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald. Who's going to get back on the field first remains to be seen. Who knows? We'll see. But that's just some of the things that I want to throw out there just to keep an eye on to see if there's any movement. And with that being said, last week I started doing my preseason rankings, ranking these teams from 32 to 1. Last week I started off at 32 with the Cleveland Browns, went down to 29 with the Colts, and I'm starting off at 28 to 25 today. And let's get right into it. Number 28 in my rankings are those Buffalo Bills that I mentioned earlier with Josh Allen and A.J. McCarron. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? They still a lot of questions still going on with Shady McCoy. He's the best player on that offense. When you have questions with your best player on offense, then it's not a secure thing to be looking at. And just that offense in general, yeah, they got Kelvin Benjamin. They have a lot of young receivers going into their second year. So how good is the offense going to be? That team's always been more defensive oriented. They were a playoff team last year with Tyrod Taylor leading that team. Again, that's a team that the defense is going to have to carry. But I have them at 28 with, younger quarterbacks. I think they're going to be in the transition. And sorry, Bills, I know you made the playoffs, but I'm going out on a limb and putting you guys this low because I have to put somebody this low. I just don't believe the Bills have it this year. They're going to be fighting with the Jets for the last place spot, and rightfully so with young quarterbacks in the fold. They're going to be a 6-win team, 7 at best. But I got the Bills at 28. At number 27, I have the Alex Smith Washington Redskins. Not because of Alex Smith. I think he's a pretty good player. But I think he's a player that needs talent around him for him to produce and for him to shine. And with the news of Darius Geis getting hurt with that torn ACL, the cupboard is bare there when it comes to talent. I mean, you look at Josh Doxson as a receiver. You look at Jordan Reed as a tight end, often injured tight end. I don't like their defense whatsoever. And, man, Jay Gruden. If you looked at our show, the inaugural Fast Break Sports Hour, my brother really put him on a hot seat as a guy. And rightfully so. I mean, he really hasn't done too much as the coach of the Washington Redskins. But again, look for Chris Thompson and look for some IGP Ryan to step their games up and be the number one running back, one or the other, or they're going to have a split role. But I don't think the Redskins are going to have too great of a season this year. Uh, Not to say that Darius Geis was a savior, but they were going upwards. That was going to be their workhorse. They were going to have that running back that they can lean on and kind of just build their offense around him and let Alex Smith kind of, you know, run this offense and maintain the offense. Basically, is what Alex Smith has done. He plays up to whatever not competition, but whatever talent is around him. That's what Alex Smith does. He's not a bad quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. He's just whatever you have around him. That's what he's going to produce. And I have the Redskins at 27. At 26, I got the Chicago Bears. I was flip flopping with them and the Redskins, but the Chicago Bears, I think, are more so on an uptick slowly with the young talent they have. I think Mitchell Trubisky is going to have a slightly better season. Nothing that's going to say, wow, he's a top 10 quarterback. He's not there yet. I do like their run game with Tariq Cohen and obviously Jordan Howard, who I believe Jordan Howard's going to have a great season this year. They're going to run the ball. They're going to play smart offense. That defense is very underrated, pretty good. But the issue there is they haven't signed, and this is the only unsigned first-round draft pick, Roquan Smith from Georgia. You got to get him in. I mean, I know they're having issues with the contract mostly because of injuries or whatnot. And obviously, Roquan Smith wants some guarantees in there. They got to bring him in. That's a rookie. He's supposed to be the leader of that defense here in the near future. And I think he was going to be a vital part of their growth. So the sooner the better. But still, training camp is about to break and still hasn't shown up, still hasn't agreed to terms. Look out for that. Is he going to agree to terms for the preseason's up, or is he going to hold out up until week 2, 3, or 4? That doesn't bode well for that young team. But they're a team to me that's slowly going to start getting better, and they're on the slight rise. But they're still a last place team in that division that carries the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers. Oh my, not the Bears. But yeah, look out for that. They're number 26, Chicago Bears. Number 25, the Cincinnati Bengals. I almost put them lower. When I mean lower, like 29 or 30. But I still think that with Joe Mixon and AJ Green, those are top players. I believe Joe Mixon is going to be one of them pretty good running backs. Not a top 5 running back, but somewhere in the top 10 because he's going to be the workhorse. Yeah, they still got Giovanni Bernard, but he's more so of a third down back, if that, switch of pace back. But Joe Mixon can do it all. And I expect him to have a better season this year. Look out for Joe Mixon. Not a top 5 running back, but top 10, somewhere around 7, 8, 9. Look out for that. AJ Green is still a top 10 receiver, but can they get him the ball? Has Andy Dalton hit his ceiling? And I think the tough answer to that is yes. I think you have seen the best of Andy Dalton. I don't think. So this is the way I view Andy Dalton. He's already hit his ceiling, right? Where other players like a Drew Brees, their ceiling's up here. And, they play close to that ceiling. Andy Dalton's ceiling's here. But the difference is I think his floor, about here. So he's a pretty average quarterback. So you're not going to get a really bad quarterback, but you're not going to get a great quarterback. You're going to get a solid quarterback. You have questions on the offensive line and the defense. I mean, the aging defense that the Cincinnati Bengals have. And Marvin Lewis. Marvin Lewis hasn't won a playoff game. He's always on a hot seat. I don't understand how he still has a coaching job. That's incredible. I mean, if you're Marvin Lewis, you have to be thinking, man, this is wonderful. All I got to do is win 8 games, and I'm good to go. I win 8 games and I can stay here forever, which made sense when they had Chad Johnson, Chad Ochocinco, because that team would never win. That team was like 3-13, 4-12, 3-13, 2-14. So when Marvin Lewis brought them to the playoffs, they're like, man, this is the king. Marvin Lewis is the king, but you can't win a playoff game for whatever reason. Does he have a lifetime contract, or does he know something? Does Marvin Lewis have some inside information on the Cincinnati Bengals? Does he know something about the owner that he's like, man, you let me go, I'm about to snitch on you? I don't understand why he's still the coach. That's a conversation for another day, but that's interesting. Man, I don't know how he's the coach. But the Bengals, they're 25. Continue to watch the show here in future days, tomorrow or Wednesday or whenever it is, to see who's at 24 all the way down to 21 as we get to our top 4 teams. and I'm gonna be doing this throughout the preseason. But see, I'm smart because I didn't just do 32-1 right now. I'm able to watch these games a little bit and kind of say, you know what, that team's not number 28. It could be like 18. So hey, I got that in my bag. So check out the next show for the next four teams on my list on the preseason power rankings leading up to the season. NFL wise, that's all I got. That's all I'm going to talk about when it comes to football. Obviously, football preseason, NFL style. Week 2 starts Thursday again, so check that out. Games start to get a little bit better. Some of these stars start to play a little bit more. It's going to be fun to see, man. Keep checking it out. Obviously, you guys got to check them out to see, man, y'all got to find some fantasy football sleepers here. Pay attention. This is where you find those players, but I don't care if y'all don't watch. I'm going to be watching. That's why I be getting these players. Yeah. So, again, that's enough for football. I'm going to get a little bit into the baseball. Again, it was a crazy week in baseball. The walk-off style crazy weekend of baseball. You saw, man, so the Cubs and the Nationals had a series this weekend. The Nationals took game 1 on Friday. The Cubs took game 2. So this game 3 was very important for the Nationals to kind of stay in the thick of things for the wild card, the Washington Nationals. And they're still in the wild card, but this loss really hurt them. And not just the loss, but how they lost. So the Nationals were up 3-0. They were up 3-0 in the ninth inning. All right. So you're like, man, they're good to go. 3-0. The Cubs are coming to bat, bottom of the ninth. They got the bases loaded. All right. And I got to look at the name because I don't know this dude. But David Boat, man, he had the boat full. He had first, second, and third full. He comes up to bat and hits a grand slam. Walk-off grand slam. David Boat unleashes a shipwreck for the Nationals, and they win 4-3. So it's one game, but it's one of those games where if the Nationals would have won, they win the series against the Cubs, and that momentum continues to build, and they have another game up in the wild card to stay in the thick of things. But now they took that loss, and the way they lost, I think it's gonna bury the Nationals. Yeah, we still got about 40 games left, about 45 games left, but that was a big loss, especially for where the Nationals are in the wild card standings. And another, man, this one hurts my heart. So the Dodgers had a big series with the Rockies this weekend. It was a 4-game series that started on Thursday. And the Dodgers came back and they won a game on Thursday. They won 8-5. It was a pretty good game. The bad thing, though, was Kenley Jensen came down with some issues with his heart. And they didn't know what was going on. And he went to the hospital in Colorado, and it found out that it was an irregular heartbeat. So they had to send him back to Los Angeles to get treatment and kind of manage that. Obviously, it sucks. That's bad news. That they told him he has an irregular heartbeat. So it looks like it's going to be something that's going to hold him out about 4 weeks, which is big because that's the closer. And the Dodgers, they're just in a lot of tight games. That's just the way baseball is. Baseball's played close. The 8th and ninth innings are very important. And a lot of times, Kenley Jensen will come in with 2 outs in the 8th to finish off a team. If not, definitely in the ninth inning to produce the save for the Dodgers. So that came down the pike. With bad news, not just for Dodger fans, but for baseball and for Kenley Jensen himself. Definitely hope for that to get figured out and to recover from that and not have any more of those issues because it's a big deal. So that definitely hurts, and it showed in the games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Not so much Friday. So the Dodgers were up 4-3 in the bottom of the 7th. They were up 4-3 on Friday. This is where the losing streak started. Up 4-3, and they gave up a 2-run homer to McMahon. What's his first name, man? Man, I want to say Ryan McMahon. If I'm wrong, see, that's why y'all got to watch the show. If you Rockies fan, I believe his name is Ryan McMahon, but his last name is McMahon, all right? Not Vince McMahon, not Jim McMahon, not Shane McMahon, but those dudes are all awesome in their own way. But Ryan McMahon, if it's Ryan McMahon, hit a 2-run home run on Friday produced the win for the Rockies. So that was the first win. Okay. Nothing Kenley Jensen would have done there because he doesn't come in the seventh inning, but still. Now let's get to Saturday. Saturday, a well-pitched game. Dodgers up 2-0 throughout the game. And we get to the bottom of the ninth. Dodgers are up 2-0. 2 men on base. And what happens? Ryan McMahon comes up to bat, if that's your name. You come up to bat and you hit a 3-run home run, walk-off style. That wouldn't have happened if Kenley Jensen was pitching in that game in the ninth inning. That's loss number 2. So now we lost 2 in a row. Yes, I say we because I'm a Dodger fan. We've lost 2 in a row. Now let's get to Sunday. Okay. Game is tied. It's 3-3. Bottom of the ninth. What happens? We get 1 out. We bring in a new pitcher. He walks a guy. He gives up a single. He walks another guy. So now the bases are loaded. And Ryan McMahon's on second base. You see how Ryan McMahon played into this? If that's your real name. He's on second base. Bases are loaded. Game tied. 1 out. And you give up another walk. And now you lose in walk-off style because you gave up a walk. Kenley Jensen's not going to give up 3 walks in the ninth inning to lose a game. That game's going to extras if Kenley Jensen's pitching. So you see how important Kenley Jensen is just in those 3 games? More so the last 2 that they lost in walk-off style. But they lost those 3 games. At the end of the game, they were winning or tied in the last game. And they lost 3 games in a row. So they're no longer in first place. Luckily, the Diamondbacks couldn't beat the Reds Friday or Saturday, but they won last night or yesterday. And now the Diamondbacks are in first place by themselves, 1-game lead, and the Rockies have just climbed into this race. Not just the wild card, but definitely in the NL West. So you have the Diamondbacks, then you got the Dodgers back a game, you got the Rockies back 1.5. We don't want that. But this next 2 weeks is going, I said it last week. I said it last week that these next 2 weeks were going to be big for the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers, but now it's big for the Rockies now too. And you got some big series going on. If you look at the standings, let's go to the American League. The Red Sox are the best team in baseball. That's not going to change. It's not even close. The team's 85-35. That's ridiculous. That's what the Dodgers were doing last year. 85-35. They're 50 games above 500. that team's unstoppable. That's a force to be reckoned with. So they got the number 1 spot. And ain't no one gonna catch them. No one's even close to them. The next team close to them is 10 games out. That's the Yankees. But the Yankees are the number 1 wild card team. So they're gonna be in. The Astros. They're going to be in. Remains to be seen if they're going to win the division, though, because the A's have been on the tear since the All-Star break. Man, the A's are only 2.5 games behind the Astros. It wasn't like that 3 or 4 weeks ago, but 2.5 games behind the Astros. So that's, you can see any of those 2 teams winning. I think at the end of the day, the Astros will still win the division, but you got the A's and the Mariners going for that last wild card spot. The Mariners are still 1.5 behind the A's. And the Mariners were the team that were behind the Astros before the A's went on this tear. So for you baseball fans, I know you guys are like, man, yeah, give it. For those that are not, I'm trying to convert y'all. I got to watch baseball and watch these games because it's interesting. And the Indians, they're already going to win the division. They're going to be the 3rd spot in the American League. That Central's wrapped up. They're at 66-51. You know, not too shabby. But let's get to the National League. You have... Man, I was talking about boats and shipwrecks and boats and you know what? and Ryan McMahon, if that's your real name. This, man, we have everything clumped up. Now, you have the Cubs that are the number 1 team, all right? The Cubs are 68-49. The second team below the Cubs are the Braves. They're 65-51. So 2.5 games behind the Cubs. So that the Cubs don't have anything figured out here. All right. The D-backs, the third team, they're leading the NL West. They're 4 games behind the Cubs. So you kind of see how close they are to where the D-backs are the number 3 seed, but they're only 4 games away from being the best team in the National League record-wise. Let's look at the wild card though, where you got the Phillies, the Brewers, the Dodgers, the Cardinals, who have been on a tear. They've won 8 out of the last 10, and they just jumped into this race. The Cardinals are 2.5 games out of the wild card and only a half game behind the Dodgers. That's not good for the Dodgers. The Dodgers are going to have to figure something out. We got to get back to the NL West. I don't want to be in this wild card race. This is ridiculous. This is not wonderful. I don't like the way things are turning out, man. But, man, Clayton Kershaw pitching tonight. Y'all better win tonight. Clayton Kershaw going against Madison Bumgarner. Man, that's a matchup. See how that aligned? You got Dodgers going against the Giants, the #1 rivalry in baseball. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care what nobody says about the Red Sox. I don't care what nobody says about Red Sox versus Yankees. I don't care what they say about Cubs and Cardinals. #1 rivalry in baseball is Dodgers, Giants. Might be the #1 rivalry in sports, close to Michigan and Ohio State. But yeah. Clayton Kershaw and Madison Bumgarner, 2 of the best pitchers in baseball. They're both pitching 500 this year, but they've been having a lot of injuries they've been having to come through. And their ERAs are still pretty good. They're not at 500 because of bad pitching. They're at 500 because of bad offense. And their teams can't produce runs when they're pitching, when they're starting out there, when they're on the bump. Clayton Kershaw, Madison Bumgarner, check it out. You don't get to see this that often, where the stars align and these two pitchers go at it. It's a big game. I don't see the Giants in the wild card. They're like 7.5 out of the wild card, 6.5. So I don't really see them in there. So big game for Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers. Have to get off that 3-game losing streak. But back to this wild card. So you got the Phillies, Brewers, Dodgers, Cardinals, Rockies, Pirates, and Nationals. Yes, I said Nationals. So I'm telling you, that loss last night to Mr. Boat, it doesn't bode well. They're 5.5 out, but I think that loss was big. The Pirates are 5 out for that second wild card spot. It's tough. The Rockies, man, this is where it gets good. I think this is the real chase right here. The Rockies at 63-55, 2.5 out of the wild card, but 1.5 out of the division. So work with me here. Obviously you win the division, you're in the playoffs, but 2.5 out of the wild card, 1.5 in the division. Cardinals also 2.5 out of the wild card, and 5.5 in the division. So I don't see the Cardinals winning the division. The Dodgers 2 from the wild card, but 1 from the division. They gotta get into the division race. They gotta win that. That 3-game losing streak was big. And you got the Brewers and Phillies, who are tied for the top 2 spots in the wild card. They're even. No games separating those two teams. So yeah, man, if you guys love baseball, especially in the National League, you guys are loving this race. Yeah, I'm wiping off the sweat from my eyebrows. I'm getting a little bit nervous because the Dodgers have to win today. They have to win tomorrow, and they have to start winning these series because I got to get back to the playoffs. Hopefully, reports are Kenley Jensen's, ahead of schedule. Yeah, I know it's only been 4 days. 4.5 days. But that's any good news, man. Any positive is good news for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's a big part. Yeah, 3 outs are very important. This just goes to show you how important that is. They lost 2-3 games because of that. So these next 2 weeks, man, you're going to have some big matchups. You're going to have the Rockies play the Astros. Rooting for the Astros. That series starts tomorrow. It's going to be a 2-game series. So Astros, man, I know you guys did us dirty, so now it's time for you to do the Rockies dirty. You got to sweep them dudes, The Diamondbacks, like I said last week, are playing nothing but patty cakes, and they continue to play patty cakes, even though they lost to the Reds. They lost that series 1-2. Thank you, Reds. Keeping us in, shouting distance of the Diamondbacks, 1 game behind. But they got the Rangers, who are a horrible team in the American League. They got the Rangers for the next 2 games. Then they play the Padres for 4 games. Man, they shouldn't even be called the Padres. They're the Madre. Well, I guess that's discriminatory. I shouldn't have said that, but they should be called the Hijos. They're not Padres, man. They're the last place team in the NL West. 4-game series. I love you, Padres. You guys got to split that with the Diamondbacks. Do us a favor. Do the Dodgers a favor and split that series. That would be great. But the Dodgers have a tough 3 game series with the Giants. Then they have a tough 3 game series with the Mariners, who are in there for the wild card in the American League. Man, tough sledding. And then after the Mariners, the Dodgers play the hot ass Cardinals. Yeah, I said the hot ass Cardinals for a 3 game series. So this is our bread's gonna get buttered here in the next 2 weeks. Next 2 weeks. But that might all change in September because the Diamondbacks got a horrible schedule in September, thankfully. That's where they start playing the good teams. But the Dodgers just got to stay within that 1 game within the next 2 weeks. Dodgers will be fine. They still got 7 games with the Diamondbacks. They have 6 or 7 games with the Rockies. The Rockies still got games with Diamondbacks. So it's, man, this is going to be interesting. It's way more interesting than it was last year when the Dodgers just demolished everybody, which I prefer because I'm a Dodger fan. But with all that being said, I'm done talking baseball. But man, you guys got to tune in, especially if you're like a fringe baseball fan. Look into this, man. This is some real stuff. Every night it's starting to matter now. Everything is life or death now. Dodger fans, everything is life or death. Kershaw has to get the win, please. The last thing I'm going to say is Tiger Woods, man, you were irrelevant for like 8 or 9 years, since like what, 2008, 2009, when you had last had a decent outing. But your last 3 tournaments, you have slowly progressed each game. You have gotten better, or each tournament. I believe had you had better first and second rounds in this last tournament you played in, you probably would have took it. He shot minus 14. For those of you that know golf, he shot minus 14 and took second place, man. He got 1.1 or 1.3, 1.1 or 1.3 million for getting second place. And the first place winner, I hope I'm saying his name right. His name is Brooks Koepka. He won the tournament. He was at minus 16. And anytime Tiger was on him, Tiger was catching up, but it just looked like Brooks Koepka was just stepping up to the challenge. It's like, you ain't going to catch me, bro. You going to do good. I'm going to do better. I think Tiger Woods came out the gates kind of slow. I think if he would have had a slightly better first round, second round was pretty decent. But man, third and fourth rounds, he was off the chain. And that's how he was able to get into this position. But what I'm trying to get at is, when have you ever seen a player of this magnitude, a Tiger Woods, who is to me the greatest golfer of all time, not just because of his race or anything like that, but he just changed the culture in golf, and he just changed a lot of things. He's one of those athletes that they're worldly. They make a change in how you think about the sport. You know, before people didn't really view golf as like an athletic sport, that it was like an old man's game. It was a rich man's game. It's still a rich man's game. Don't get me wrong. Like you can't, they say, well, how come we don't have more minorities playing golf? Well, they can't afford it. Okay. It takes a lot of money to play golf. My son, when he was little, he liked golf, but that thing was expensive even in Mexico. Man, country club bull crap. You know how that goes, but he changed the sport. And being gone and irrelevant for 8 or 9 years, going through his whole, mishap with his marriage and just all them issues, drugs, and just going in and out of depression and alcohol and pills. And then now he's back. And I think he's back. I think he's getting back on his train. So I believe he will get back on track to win a major before it's all said and done. Get that one more major. But he's been getting better each tournament. I like seeing that. So, those people that loved Tiger Woods 10 years ago, that didn't have kids, and there was like Tiger Woods, this, that, and the other. And now you got a kid, and now you can talk about Tiger Woods again. So now it's relevant again. So it's crazy how that happens. But that's all I had to say about golf. I really don't talk about golf. I don't watch it. I'll see the highlights, but I don't watch golf. There was a point where I watched Tiger Woods a little bit when he was in his prime. Man, but it's pretty good to see him back in the news. I didn't like to see him in the news for all the bad stuff, but now he's back in the news because he's golfing and he's doing a great job of it. And it looks like he's turning into the old Tiger Woods. And man, that's it for the show today. I'm keeping it real. That's it for the show today. It was a pretty good long show, longer than what I wanted, but that's what happens when you talk about football. Football takes up all of our time, which is wonderful. We wanted to take up all of our time for the rest of our lives because football is life. NFL football is life. And stay tuned to the Fast Break Sports Hour. I might be on tomorrow, I might be on the day after at the latest. You don't know, but that's why you got to subscribe and you got to click on that little bell thing. So anytime I'm on live, you know I'm live and you can check it out. But whether you check me out live or you check me out later, I'm good for it. It's all good. I'm not worried about it. I do this because I love it. I can have nobody looking at me, but I got one person. I believe it's my pops. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. My brother looking at me sometimes. My mother be looking at me. It's my family. It's all good. But I could be looking at myself and I'm all right. I like talking sports. I love talking sports. This is the Fast Break Sports Hour. Thank you for joining me. That's all I got to say today. Love y'all. Keep it going. Peace.